Welcome to Rappahannock Issues. I'm Tom Cohen.
And I'm David Kerr.
And we're going to be looking at topics that are of interest to our community, both regionally and to the state. Welcome back to Rappahannock Issues. We're talking about the recently concluded Virginia legislative session. Now we have Delegate Bobby Orrick, who's from the 54th District of a large part of Spotsylvania County, so welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be here.
You chaired the Health, Welfare, and Institutions Subcommittee, so it was a busy session, but it ended early.
One day early, yeah.
Amazing.
So it's, 1 day early is 1 day early. We saved the state that little bit of money.
Cool.
So, yeah.
What's your overall assessment of the session this year?
Well, the session itself went very well. It wasn't as controversial as frequently we see in election year sessions. Frankly, as much as anything, the session was all about killing certain measures that the governor and certain quarters and factions wanted to get forward. There were a lot of bills that would have imposed more restrictions on gun owners. Most of those failed. The Medicaid expansion was a part of the governor's initiative. That failed again. So things of that nature to pretty much try and just maintain the status quo with Virginia's laws. Besides that, we were dealing with some tough financial issues. While certain parts of the budget grew, the non-general fund part, which is that part of the budget we don't control, that's where all the federal money comes through, college tuition, things of that nature, that increased. But the general fund portion, which we have discretion over, actually we reduced that by almost $1 billion, but still found monies to give the state share for teacher raises, our state employees, our local government, law enforcement, things of that nature. So overall, it was a very good session.
And interestingly, heading into the session, the conversation was that the budget was going to be this very difficult nut to crack, but it turned out to be able to be done with a limited amount of gnashing.
Yeah, and one of the biggest reasons, fortunately, the revenue picture has turned around considerably. When we were going into session, it looked very much gloom and doom, but things have picked up. It's an indication that the private sector economy is improving, but we're still not out of the woods, and so we've crafted a very prudent budget, doesn't anticipate any kind of a rapid growth going forward, but if the growth comes, we've actually put provisions in the budget as well where those extra revenues, where they will go, where we prioritize those spending projects in the next year. So the governor can't just go out kind of like a cookie jar and say, oh, extra money. We prioritized where we want them to go.
Oh, neat. And is that relatively new to do that type of prioritization?
We've been doing a lot more of that in the past 6 to 8 years in particular. Prior to that, it was relatively unheard of. But the legislature decided we've set our priorities as we go forward in the budget, and we didn't want governors, as past history had kind of shown, for them to come in and especially in their last year or two, just fund their pet projects, being their legacy. That's not a wise and prudent use of the state resources, as while we fund for a 1 to 2 year budget cycle, we actually look down the road 6 to 8 years in our budget process as we're adopting the one that we just did this year.
Ethics was a large issue that came before, and that there was some disagreement or movement on that between the two different chambers.
Right. There were some, I feel, that in particular over on the Senate side, really didn't want to change anything from the current status quo. We don't, I think, have a problem, for the most part, in the Virginia ethics laws it now states, because any gift over $50, you have a requirement to report. The problem that arose, however, as we saw with the ex-governor, he was receiving some gifts that he didn't report, but under the current law was supposed to. But that being said, the issue did cause us to look at are there things about our current ethics laws that can be improved? And we, as a major consensus, came to, yeah, you just don't need any gift over $100. Now, why even $100? Because it is routine practice that we may, as a group of individuals, go out for a dinner, and that dinner is being paid for by whoever's sponsoring the event. This would allow us to potentially do that 3 or 4 times during a year with the different groups, because it is a $100 aggregate cap over the year from any one entity.
Okay.
And even those have to be reported. So I think it's a fair balance. It allows us to be able to network and socialize with individuals. Folks during session frequently bring us little mementos like coffee mugs, things of that nature, and it's so that we have a physical reminder that they came by to visit and we'll remember their issues in the future.
And I don't know if anybody who paid attention, there used to be a time when the first day of the session, the desks would be covered with fruit baskets and all sorts of things, and that has sort of gone by the wayside, not for a long time. Yeah. You had some bills that you were trying to push forward in the legislature. How did those do?
All in all, very well. There were several bills on education matters that I got through this year. One that deals with, right now we've got the problem when a teacher comes in under provisional license, they've got 3 years to get their certification. However, in career and tech teachers, they have to have their industry certification immediately. And so we've gotten that now tied to the same 3-year window. Then additionally, we've got certification tests required for career and tech students where there are really no certification tests out there available. But we've got a state-mandated curriculum and accountability on those competencies. Now the law allows, where there's not a certification test, we hold the teacher and the students accountable by using those competency measures based on the state-approved curriculum. Those were 2 of the major ones on education. I carried the child daycare legislation, which, because of certain tragedies that had happened around the state in the past year or 2, we looked at, we needed to modify some of the current restrictions for licensure. We actually have lowered the thresholds slightly, but we wanted to make clear and still ensure that people could engage in child daycare as they always have between family and friends, and not have big brother, as it were, of the state coming in and infringing on those arrangements. Additionally, we did look at certain things as it related to Medicaid. We ended up not moving anything out, but we did put more money in the budget for our free clinics and those other types of public assistance for medical care. So those were just some of the several.
Were there any other particular bills of interest that weren't particularly yours, or that sort of perked an interest in your mind that were sort of waiting for the governor to deal with? Or
we had a lot of discussion on bills dealing with constitutional convention, calling for,
yes.
I had resolutions that would call for us to ask for a constitutional convention to look at the federal Constitution, specifically as it relates to the things like term limits for congressional representatives, as it relates to the powers between the states and the federal government. That was one of the most controversial matters we saw the whole session, that most everybody's computers were getting blown up on both sides of the issue, that some feel the federal government has to be reined in, and others that were so afraid of a constitutional convention that might run amok and destroy our current Constitution as it exists. So ultimately, the legislature did nothing. We just maintained the status quo, kind of look and see what happens down the road. We do have now 2 state songs.
Oh, that's right.
After many years of not having an official state song, we have a popular state song, Sweet Virginia Breeze, and then a state song that was championed by the Speaker, Delegate Howell, that will be more traditional, as to the tune of Shenandoah, but is just some beautiful lyrics that go with it, and I think something the citizens can be very proud of.
Right. Well, and I think the citizens can be proud of the movement by the Virginia legislature this session, ending a day early, and dealing with the thorny issue of the budget in a way that both sides seem to have been able to come to agreement. And I think we're all in agreement that Virginia is moving forward, and we hope you come back to see us again on Rappahannock Issues. We're going to have another show with some other of our state legislators and delegates and senators, and have their updates of what they thought about the session. So come on back to Rappahannock Issues. Thank you.